Did you know that it's best to have actually two department sites for every department to ensure the proper security posture? In this video, we're going to talk through the two strategies for an inner department site and an outer department site and why you need both, the different activities for both. Actually, a lot to unpack here, so let's get started. Okay, so what we're going to talk about in this particular video is the department sites that we have in the organization. So we understand that there's various departments, and when you set up an intranet site for a department site, understand that there are two parts of that department. There is the org-facing part or website, the intranet that's org-facing, and then you have the private site for inter-department activity. So if you look at the whiteboard here, let's just say we're talking through the console engineers. So here's a member of the console engineering team, and from that group, you're going to have a site that's going to be part of the intranet or the collection of sites for the intranet that's meant to be org-wide service to general associates within the organization. So they may come to this site for key documents or policies related to the department, as well as the latest announcements. If there may be an events list or a calendar to show all the key events that are coming up for that particular department that the general associate should be aware of, or those who interact with this department. And so this is how they stay up to date on the latest and greatest. On the flip side, there's going to be an inter-department site that's really meant for private communication and collaboration within the department. And then and this is usually hosted in Microsoft Teams. And we talk about the reason why the inner department is hosted through Teams and the other one is hosted through generic SharePoint and the security posture behind that. So this is going to be Teams. And just like any other team, you're going to have your team node. And then within your team node, you're going to have the various channels. And then you're going to have a repository of files and folders to where they can collaborate. And of course, you're going to have all your other tabs to where you can bounce through the different applications hosted within the Teams interface. Now, this inner department, because it's Teams, we understand that this is going to be a members-only security posture, meaning that only the owners or the members within the group, within the department, will be invited in. And what this is going to do is secure this from top down to only those handful of members or department members within the group. On the SharePoint side, this is going to have a general read-only access as its default security posture. And basically what that means is that anyone in the organization by default will have read-only access to all of this content. And then you would have to explicitly give them rewrite access to certain folders or pages, and we talked through that in the previous video. Or you're going to define your explicit members, and ideally that would probably be the same member group that would be part of your Microsoft Teams that would then be members of this particular site, which would give them rewrite access to the majority of assets within the site. So just understand that for a particular department, there's usually two separate sites, one with a lockdown private default security posture, usually hosted in Microsoft Teams, and the other one with a general read-only access to everyone in the organization, usually hosted within the generic modern SharePoint. So what does this look like in practice? So if I flip over to this particular tab, this is the site that we started in the previous video. And as you can see, we kind of built it out with a lot of different ideas or concepts that usually a org-facing department site will have. So as I mentioned before, these are the announcements. And notice how these announcements can range anywhere from here's the latest update to a particular document, or we accomplished 300% performance increase based on the new chip that we implemented. Again, this is the console engineering group. And the console engineering group within Tesla is the ones who are responsible for the big iPad, if you would, within the Tesla. And that's really like the main central brain power of the Tesla vehicle. And within that, you can just imagine that that group is going to be broken down into many sub-departments under the console engineer. So you may have one department focused on the gaming module within the console. You may have another department focused on the streaming module within the console, and then so on and so forth. So you have these announcements to where, one, they're open enrollment for beta testing, or achievements within the department, or maybe another update for those who are interested. And then over here on the right, quick links. This usually is either renamed as quick links or as resources. Again, key resources for this department. They may highlight their market research that says, hey, we're looking at some results or some improvements based on these usability tests that we perform with the market and other key users. There may be a console university to where as an associate you can enroll or even volunteer just to learn more about the console and different things that the end consumer may have. Then you have this key context, and this is really important. And we can talk through how this format may not be the best useful format as far as the biggest value add, but there may be a key context, and really this is just the highlight. If you want to get involved with this area of our department, these are the people to contact, and that's what's missing. Right now, if I just mouse over here, you have this people card, and it's going to highlight the details of this individual, but not necessarily what this individual, why would I contact Deshaun versus Madison or Ethan in the context of the console engineering. So if you look at this, there's another format that I really love, and that's a descriptive format. And the reason why I love this format is because not only do I provide Deshaun Clark and then his contact information, I can now go in and add a description that says something like, so console gaming beta testing. So in the context of this particular department site, you will want to contact Deshaun if you want to join the beta testing for gaming. And you may want to contact Madison if you want to do testing or have ideas or join the innovation panel for streaming video module within the console. So this descriptive format of the quick links is probably a better suited format when you start talking about key contacts and why you want to contact someone within this particular department site. And then in this other area, you notice that there are demos or video training or any other interactive. Video is probably the number one growing media format within the organization because just given its context, you can provide more context as far as training, knowledge transfer, policies, procedures, anything that you're using a format to communicate a concept or idea or any information on a product or service. The video format is probably going to give you more contextual information. Probably a 5-minute video is probably worth a 500-page document in Word, or maybe 500 slides in PowerPoint as an example. The last section would be the events. And again, these are, look at these in the abstract way. These can be upcoming, as you can see, usability testing. They probably highlighting that. Maybe, as you can see here, a market results readout or any other information. It could be ongoing training. It could be lunch and learns. It could be release dates for another version of the console or another version or a new module that they're releasing within the console. All these key dates are here. And again, as you can look at all of this, this is going to be information, general information for the department out to the organization on how the organization or how the department is progressing. The other one that I really like, and this is really leveraging one of the newer features within the modern SharePoint, is the FAQ. And a lot of people may have questions on, different aspects of your department. How can I get involved with this? Or how do I get a, provide an update to this item, or how do I get in, get the latest information on XYZ, or so on and so forth. So this is using the collapsible section within the modern page. And if you go into the edit option here, all of these sections where you can add in a section item, the same area where you go and change the background color of a section, you now have this new option to make it collapsible or not. And if you enable that, you actually get a text box to where you can specify the section header, which is going to be this information that's in the bold or the H1 tag. And then you get your standard body section to where you can add in any web part that you want to provide the answer or the details of that particular question. Also here in the section area, and these are primed for FAQs, but you can use them in other formats and concepts that you have to communicate information using a page and using these various sections to kind of break the page up into smaller chunks. The other piece you have is the expanded behavior, or the default behavior. If this is going to be expanded by default or collapsed by default, you can toggle that on and off. Again, just another really handy capability or feature that you have within these pages. And again, they are prime themselves as a really good format to have for FAQs. You will also notice here on the left navigation outside of the FAQ section is that you will notice that if you flip between a member of the department, notice how their navigation for the org-facing site is different from the average user or the read-only user within the organization visiting the department site. And this is made possible using audience targeting. And we take the strategic approach of using groups that are tied to the internal site, especially with it being a Microsoft Teams site, or even the security group that's tied to this SharePoint team template site, and distinguish between the navigation view for members of the department compared to those outside of the department. And you can see how that's going to be trimmed. For the members of the department, what we try to do is make it convenient. So this org-facing site actually has an incoming mailbox, so they can click on that. And we talked through that in the previous video. And they also have things like a notebook. But notice this here. This is a link to the internal site, which is going to be one of the stitchings that you can implement to bind the two sites together, or to kind of stitch the two sites together. Clicking on the internal site, it takes me to the Microsoft Teams experience, and back to our whiteboard. It's going to be this security posture here that is meant for internal department communication, internal private collaboration, as well as all of the files and other features for an inter-department activity starts to shape up. Notice that you have your main team site, and this is standard Microsoft Teams structure with the standard Microsoft Teams security posture, to where you have members and owners, and everyone by default has access to all the channels within them. And this can be an inner open department strategy, meaning that everyone in the various departments will be able to navigate to the other sections, or AKA channels within the department, just to kind of get a sense of what's happening. This strategy speaks to the inter-department activity, to where there's cross-functional. So someone maybe that's in the console music division may drop into the gaming, or maybe need help on a gaming project, or whatever the scenario may be. This type of structure enables that. You also have the capability of locking down the folders within the gaming channel. So here I can, and we talked through this in the previous video, where we talked about the security posture and security strategies within Microsoft Teams. So we all know that for any one of these folders, we can switch over to the SharePoint view and then go to manage access on that folder. And then we can cherry pick and select which team members we want to have access to that particular drawing directory or folder. And you can do that with any other folders here. We also seen this happen for inter-department communication, where there may be an admin folder, or maybe a managers folder, and then you will lock this down to where only the owners of the team will have access. So here I'm going to stop sharing this with the visitors of the group, and most times that's going to be empty. And I'm also stop sharing this with the members of the department or the team, and only leave this open for owners, with the understanding that the owners are going to be the managers or the leads within that department, and then you can kind of lock down those files for that particular area. You will also notice that in this team view, we have a couple of other features and capabilities. So imagine that you're in the gaming division within this department, and you may have a vendor list of all the gaming companies that you interact with, and these are the companies that will create the games for the Tesla gaming console in that form factor. So here you have the name of the company, the key contact for that particular company in the gaming division, as well as any address or phone number. Of course, you can grow this out to emails and what other items that you have. Again, just re-emphasizing how this is inner communication within the department and private to others outside of the department that are, outside of the department, so to speak. You also have the gaming task. Again, this is a scenario where you have, for this interdepartment site, you may have projects, right? You may have new games coming on board. You may have new streaming services that come on board. And there's a process and there's a step task list that you have to go through in order to onboard or integrate those streaming services or games. So here's an example of a project site using Planner or Task for Microsoft Teams. And, very simple bucket structure. These are extremely flexible to where you can organize these buckets in anywhere that makes sense for that particular department. And notice how with the different channels, that's how you can leverage this. So you can have a gaming structure and strategy for the project structure and strategy for the gaming division, which may be different than the project structure and strategy for the music division, and the same for the entertainment or the streaming services, all within the console department. You also, to leverage this general channel, this can be used for general information or files that may span across the various departments or inner departments within consoles. And those can be things like, especially like templates. So usually for templates, you want everyone to conform to the same document template or structure for drawings or technical specs or even project or even budget, Excel files, and so on and so forth. All of those can be in the central location within the templates folder, and storing that under the generals channel is probably a great idea because it's generic and it's not really tied to any inner department, and everyone would know to go to this general channel to consume those standard forms and templates and the like. You can also, here in the general channel, leverage that for the team calendar. Again, this is off of another video that was shot where you can create a team calendar within Teams. And this is just a SharePoint list. It's a very simplistic SharePoint list. A great way to leverage this to, for team members to request time off. Again, this could maybe better suited in the general channel, so that way anyone across the inner departments, you would have one central calendar to highlight, who's available, who's away, who may be offsite to a different meeting, and so on and so forth. So these are very simple to fill out. You just put the name of the person, the category, just say this is a testing event, and this is going to happen, let's say the 14th through the 19th for Madison, and then kind of save it off. And you will notice that, this is configured to show the name of the person, aka the title field, as well as the selected category. And I'll talk through this again in that calendar, team calendar, to where you can use a calculated field to concatenate and give you this type of view, to where you have the name and the event or the category of the event, and then a time span for that. So, again, these are different features that you can leverage to help with the intercommunication, the private collaboration with the various team members within the department. Another feature that you can use these interdepartment sites for is to collaborate with external users, right? So, and it's really good to separate, especially when you start to talk about interacting with users outside of the organization. You want to be very focused and very intentional and very strategic on how you interact with that external user. So that way there's no mistakes and there's no accidents with exposing information to more information than you intend to. So almost like a data loss, accidental prevention. So with those, you can, with the gaming channel, for example, let's say you want to invite a guest user, you can invite a guest user to a particular file. And we talked through this when we talk about project management within Microsoft Teams, some of the best practices and strategies. There's a difference between using a guest user as a team, which is probably way too broad, because adding a guest user at the team level exposes all of your channels to that guest user. Most of the times what you want to do is really just share files with that external user. So in our strategy, usually what we would do is create an external folder, something that's very explicit, and at the very top of that folder, at the folder level, we would then invite our external user to that particular folder. And you can do that in a various ways, where you could either use the share option and then invite that user using the share. And here I'm gonna just type in an external email address, and this is going to render that. Oh, it seems like this particular SharePoint site is not configured for external sharing. But once you have that configured, this is where you expose the external folder. You expose the folder to the user, and then you specify who you want to give access to, the level of access. It can be read-only, it could be read-write, and then you hit apply, and this is going to share that externally to that user. I love configuring this at the folder level, because now within this folder I can create subs, I can create add files or upload files or move files into this folder, anything that I want to expose out to the external. And for anyone who's looking at this could be very explicit, to where it's very clear that this is the folder that's been exposed and shared out to external users. So the level of access and the sensitivity for those files should match that accordingly. Okay, so again, this is just a way that you can separate the two. You have an inner department site for internal private collaboration, project management, team calendars, maybe list of other vendors and other resources, all centralized in one area with default security posture that's private to only members of that department. And then on the flip side, you're going to have a department site that's going to be org facing. And again, this is a way that you can use the website module to kind of stitch this together to that org facing site, to where you're communicating out key information about the department, activities that's happening within the department, key accomplishments for the department, as well as resources and apps and signups and forms that they can, general associates within the organization can use to consume services or engage in that department in a meaningful way. So again, just understand that when it comes to department sites, originally to our whiteboard, try not to shoehorn these two separate activities into a single site. Security will get in the way, it'd be accident prone, and you just won't get the collaboration that you need if you do not tie it to a Microsoft Teams site. In one of the upcoming videos, what we will share is a strategy, because I think Microsoft Teams, and especially with this private inter-department strategy or approach, it really speaks volumes when you start to migrate from on-prem to SharePoint Online. Because one of the issues that you have with the migration strategy that a lot of us don't think of out the gate is that you're coming from, let me just draw this up. This is your on-prem, right? So let me just draw a line in the sand. This top piece right here is going to be your on-prem site, SharePoint site, and then this side of the line is going to be your SharePoint Online or your cloud version. coming from on-prem, this could be 2010, 2007, 2013, 16, so on and so forth. You're going to have usually deep site collections, right, that you have. And we're going to talk through the different strategies of going from a single site collection to a flat site collection, in the hub strategy, so on and so forth. But when you come from this site collection that has all of these subsites, you're going to have certain subsites that are designed for interdepartment access only. And you're going to have this mix of, this subsite was for interdepartment. For the same department, this subsite was meant to be org facing. And then you try to, dance around the security groups, the SharePoint groups to kind of keep things organized. And inadvertently, you tend to find yourself, especially for these site owners, exposing things to the organization that should not be exposed. And when you migrate to the cloud, it's a really, really good idea to really start to, one, go with the flat structure with the hub and many site collections within that hub. And that's going to be one. So anything that's org facing, these kind of map very clearly directly to their respective site collections within the hub structure. But for the ones that are meant for private communication and collaboration and interdepartment access only, it's probably a good idea to migrate these over to Microsoft Teams sites, to where you have that default security posture that we talked about. And those will, because they're not really org facing, right? They're really meant for interdepartment communication and collaboration. So the Microsoft Teams sites are going to be perfect structure for those. So when we talk about our on-prem to SharePoint Online migration strategy, you will see a lot of scenarios where, one, we're going with a more flat structure. We're going to embrace the modern SharePoint ecosystem out of the box, as well as we're going to start picking off these private departments or private collaboration and communication team sites or team SharePoint sites or project sites that are really meant for either project management or interdepartment communication, and really start to roll those or migrate those into a Microsoft Team equivalent. So this is really going to set the foundation, what we talked about with understanding the two department sites, the two flavors of department sites and the strategies between them. And when you get to your on-prem to SharePoint Online migration strategy, how that really plays a critical role in that migration strategy. All right. So hopefully this was helpful with identifying the two different department sites. I see a lot of mistakes out there where people are trying to represent a single department and the various activities that are needed for their department with a single site, and you paint yourselves in the corner with all type of security pitfalls and things along those lines. Any questions on any of this, please leave them in the comments section. And until then, I'll see you in the next video, and take care.